Hello, hello. Hi, Colin. How you doing, sir?
Doing well. I guess I'll go ahead. I'd like to welcome everybody from the San Antonio Cloud Computing Group. Anybody who made it over from the .NET Virtual Group. I'd like to thank the 425 show here for having us and hosting us so quickly. And thank you to Christos as well for making it happen. I'm just very appreciative of the outreach that Microsoft and kind of all the outer branches do for education for developers. Once again, thank you for producing the stream. I got one announcement for the San Antonio Cloud Computing Group before I turn it over to you. And that is that 2 weeks from today, on June 24th, at the same time, at the next meetup event, we'll have Cecil Phillip. And Cecil is a senior cloud advocate at Microsoft with many years of experience building applications with .NET. You might have seen him co-host the Away from the Keyboard podcast or host the On.NET show on .NET Live TV. Join us in 2 weeks to dive into Dapper, discuss the various building blocks that Dapper supports, and see some live demos of how you can make use of it in your .NET applications. So I'll go ahead and hand it over to Christos.
Thank you, sir. Now, this is a bit weird because it feels like a meta. I am a guest on our own channel, which is the 45 show, but
so it's like one of those Conan O'Brien shows where he ends up running the show, and it's about his show.
Yeah, it's a show about the show, and today it's an identity show within the identity show, which is something we do all the time. And for people that are joining us now, it's a bit unconventional because we're usually live on Tuesdays and Fridays at 8 a.m. Pacific. But so I'll be doing a presentation on the 45 show on something that we've covered a few times. But at the same time, there's always a good opportunity to educate people. So thanks, Colin, for organizing it. Kellen? Is it Kellen?
Kellen, that's correct,
Kellen.
Yes.
There you go. I need to be more inclusive and learn how to pronounce names. So it's Kellen.
Well, I made sure to research your name. It's very important to get people's names right, and I've seen some pretty interesting butcher jobs of your name.
Oh yeah, I heard all the permutations of my name, from Christoph to Christopher, which has nothing to do with my name, so it's absolutely fine. I'm used to it. So cool. And I think when you approached me, you're like, hey, I would love you to come and do a show for us, or come and do a presentation on something around identity. And we agreed that we're going to talk about secretless apps.
That's correct.
So for people that are regulars to the 4 to 5 show, they might find this weird, considering this is going to be a very entry level kind of thing. But at the same time, we're going to be showing things that I don't think we've shown before, and teach you how to eliminate secrets from your applications, because it is very, very, very important. Security is hard, and getting it right, it's tricky. And hopefully if you are running on Azure, then things are a lot easier. So I usually don't do presentations. We don't do presentations on the 4 to 5 show, but why not? Let's break the mold. So let me just fire off the slideshow and go with it. So everybody should be able to see my slideshow now. If you don't know me, I'm a program manager for the Microsoft Identity team. I also have the 4 to 5 show. Oh my God, that slide is old. It's Tuesdays and Fridays. I need to update that slide. And we do it here on the 4 to 5 show. We talk about all things identity. We talked about Secretless before, and in fact, back on .NET, we talked about how important it was, and we did a nice demo. So some of the demos will be on .NET today. But the important thing for everyone is that the Microsoft Identity Platform is open to everyone. Whether you're developing with .NET or Ruby or Python or JavaScript or Java, we want you to come as you are. We want you to run your own platform, whether it's Kubernetes, bare metal, if it is on AWS, on Azure. Obviously, if you're on Azure, there will be some significant benefits, as we will see. But I don't really care, because it is an inclusive platform, and identity is important, security is important. I want people to be successful. So if you take something out of the conversation today, out of this presentation, it will be that it doesn't take a lot to add security into your platforms, and there should be some best practices. So ideally, as you walk out of the 45 minutes, an hour today, you know how to eliminate secrets and be more secure. And secrets are everywhere. And the problem is that because they're everywhere, people screw up a lot. I've done it as well. Back in 2012, when I moved my blog from WordPress into Ghost, which is a fantastic blogging platform if you haven't used it, I moved all my content and then I deployed to Azure and everything was working perfectly, but I was not using best practices. In fact, I was copying the zip files across and then I was deploying manually. And I tweeted, I think I blogged about how I was deploying my Ghost site. And somebody from the Azure Web Apps team reached out and said, well, why are you not using the GitHub trigger, right? There's a binding to GitHub. So every time you do a change on your content on GitHub, the Azure Web Apps will trigger a deployment and everything will be running as expected. I was like, oh, I didn't know that. So I took my site, I put on a public repo on GitHub, and then I connected it to Azure Web Apps, and it worked. It worked perfectly. And then I got up the next morning, and I found out that my SendGrid account had maxed out. I can't remember if it was 20 or 30,000 emails that you were allowed to send every month for free, but I had 30,000 emails sent out. And I was like, you know what? I had 30,000 subscribers, and I sent them thank you emails because I went viral overnight, and this is amazing. It turns out that it wasn't the case. And what happened is that as I put my website onto GitHub, I forgot to take the config settings out of the commit, and it was a public repo. And in there, I had my SendGrid credentials. So somebody or someone scanned the website, found my SendGrid credentials, and used those credentials to go and send their own spam email on my account. It's one of the many accounts and one of the many examples that show that developers are not particularly careful when it comes to secrets. And sometimes it will be malicious, sometimes it will be intentional, but it happens. People will forget, people will make a mistake, and eventually one of these secrets will make it into one of these public repos. And we've heard the news quite a bit recently that certain organizations fell victim to not securing their storage accounts carefully or not putting their secrets carefully somewhere. And it's unfortunate. I've worked with companies in the past where web config files, remember those web config files back from the good old .NET days, littered with credentials and API keys. And that's a problem because obviously as a developer, you have to be super careful about how you manage them, and they have to have like whole processes. I remember companies would set up a whole process to not commit those secrets and then keep them away, but they had to share them with other developers. So it was a pain, and it's still a pain. And I also want to clarify that people have done stupid things in production, like deleting databases or deleting data or having access to production systems that they shouldn't have otherwise. So you, as a developer, don't want to have the responsibility of maintaining all that, and your company needs to be secure and make sure that it protects against liability like that. I, as a developer, don't want to know how my application is running in production as long as it's secure. And if there is a way to do that, then that is awesome. So I said, I don't really care where you're coming from or what you do, and that's true. So we support everyone. We support IntelliJ, PyCharm, Rider, Bitbucket. So if you're using these tools to build solutions and deploy them somewhere on AWS, Google Cloud, DigitalOcean, or whatever environment, with whatever language you want to use, then we will support you. We will support you if you're running serverless or Kubernetes or on bare metal. That's absolutely fine. The whole point there is that we want you to be secure. And the nice thing about that is that identity can be applied to all these things. Microsoft Identity can work with all these systems, and we set up customers for success by enabling those capabilities. So, you can write your Java app and deploy to AWS and sign in users with Microsoft Identity and then allow them to access other data. Doesn't really matter. However, if you are running on the Microsoft platform, there are some super significant benefits that you get from the experience. And I will show you with demos in a little bit, but you can use Visual Studio or Visual Studio Code or Notepad for that matter and develop locally against the production environment or against the test environment somewhere remotely. These days we also have We also have emulators that will allow you to also develop locally securely and then take the exact same code and move it into a QA or a production environment without changing a single line of code. And on the other side, which means that, if you're running a web app on Kubernetes that calls into storage or Cosmos or SQL, then you get the benefit of end-to-end security without you as a developer having to do a lot of things like managed identity, and all that will take care of that. And on the other side, you got Power Automate, Power Apps, and the Power Platform can also benefit from all the data that your applications are bringing in to create solutions or create elaborate workflows and automate processes. And, as a developer, thinking back 10 years ago when I was writing code and trying to access all these different disparate systems, it was hard. I had to manage keys, I had to manage security, and it was tricky. Hey, K-Paul C, right? I don't know how to pronounce your name, but hey, welcome to the stream. We are talking about Secretless apps today, which is fun, and it's a weird time to do a stream, so I find it very meta and very weird to be here, but thanks to Kellen for organizing it, and I hope that you guys are going to learn something with me today. And that's it. I don't think I have any more slides. Everything else is a demo. So let's jump quickly to our demos. Let's see what we have here. I'm not going to write an app right now because it will take time, but I will show you how easy it is to get started and how easy it is to create secretless apps. Let's go with my first example. So here I have a giant piece of Terraform, but we're not going to jump in Terraform yet because we're still in the dev process, not in the ops process. So let's see what we have here. We have what we have. Let me see. Okay, cool. Right. So here I have a web app written with .NET, and I need to manage some secrets. Some of the secrets are used to call into other APIs. Some of the secrets need to be loaded during the runtime or when the application starts up. So how do we achieve that? The best way to do it, or the easiest way to do it, is by using Key Vault. If you haven't heard of Key Vault, it's a fantastic service. It runs on Azure Key Vault, and it allows us to store certificates and keys securely. And not only store them there securely, but also access them securely. Therefore, if I were to run an app that needs to have some secrets, so let's look into the app settings. Check this out. I have some config value that should be coming from Key Vault. And then I have some other value inside my code, which at runtime, I will be pulling it to see and work with that value. So let me make this slightly bigger. So Key Vault is great because it integrates very well with .NET. Also it integrates with JavaScript, and it also integrates with Java. So as long as you're using the Azure SDKs, then it just works. And it works beautifully because you can use an identity. On my local system will be my identity, but on a remote system will be a managed identity, and I will show you that in a second. But it can use an identity to authenticate against those systems, those backend systems, without me having to pass any keys, because that has always been the problem. You could stick all your keys into Key Vault, but eventually I had to somehow securely access Key Vault, which is never easy it wasn't easy because I had to pass a key. So at least I had to have a key for my Key Vault. But now, with the new Azure SDKs, all I have to do is actually configure my code and the access to Key Vault in such a way that it uses my own account when I develop locally, and it uses a managed identity when we develop or when we run the application remotely on the remote server, and they can both systems can access Key Vault without passing any keys. So let's see that in action. Let's see how this works. So in my program.cs, which is my starting point, let's hide this. I'm doing something very specific here. I'm saying, as the application bootstraps, as the application starts, make sure to go and look into the Key Vault and look at this specific Key Vault and then pull any information out. At this point, the way that ASP.NET works is it will look at all the values in Key Vault. It will enumerate all the keys that I have in Key Vault or the secrets, and then it will try to find mapping values in my config file. So in my config file, I have this, some config value from Key Vault. Let's open Key Vault here so we can have a reference of what's happening. Portal.azure.com. And I will bring us to that account very shortly. Let me see. You already sign in. Remain signed in with this account. I need to sign in with the right account.
I was going to ask, what exactly is it passing then to access
Well,
access your key vault?
yes, the authentication happens behind the scenes. So let me see, am I in the right place? No, I'm not in the right place. It actually passes, I'll tell you in a second, with a different account. It passes. So the Azure Identity Library uses different ways of instantiating a secret or a key or a token provider, right? So here on line 23, we say, try to find some kind of an authentication token in the cache. And if it doesn't exist, then fail. But try to find one that that actually lives on the machine. So on my local machine, it will try it will try a number of permutations. In fact, I'm being very explicit here by saying I only want to look into my Azure CLI account, whatever is signed in. And when I'm in production, I want to go into the managed identity one. However, one other way to do it is to just say this. Use the default Azure Credential. And then the default one will look at a number of different options, including Visual Studio, Visual Studio Code. You know, I have an account signed in here. So right now I'm signed in with myself. So this account, which is my corporate account, has access to my corporate subscription or number of subscriptions. And therefore, if I said, you know, use the default one, it will try to grab the first token that it found and will try to apply that to the library. So because I don't want it to use the default is a little bit like a black box where, you know, it somehow magically finds a token and then tries to use that one. And sometimes it could be a total different token to the one that you were intending to use. What I do is I say, you know what, I want to explicitly only use the ones I define here. And therefore, if I try to run the application and it fails, I know that my CLI is not configured correctly, or the account I have signed in the CLI does not have permissions to access Key Vault, and I can fix it, which is great. Therefore, I'm not letting any account just to go and sign in. And the reason why I'm doing it like this, since it's usually a question, is because if I were to use my default account in VS Code, which I can also define here, I can say new Visual Studio Code credential, right? The problem with that is that that account has God permissions on my subscription. Therefore, it can go and delete stuff, it can go and add things, and I don't want to use such an elevated account to do these things. It's like sudo on my Azure subscription. Therefore, I always prefer to create a service principal account that is locked down to Azure Key Vault to only do certain things. And you can lock it down to either one resource or one resource group or the whole subscription if you want to do that. But then it will only have read-only permissions. So it's not a contributor anymore. It's just a read-only account to my resources, right? So different people like to do different things. If you go into the Azure samples, it is high likely that you'll find the default Azure credential being used out of the box, which is great to get you started. But ideally, when you develop with other people and when you develop in a production environment, you want to be more explicit about how the code is running. So here, I have my Azure subscription. Sorry, I was trying to sign into my Azure subscription at the same time. I totally forgot about that, but it's fine. Thank you for the question, by the way.
Yeah, I was going to say, thanks for the explanation. I like the ability to easily customize and, like you said, use a service worker account to kind of enforce least privilege. So
exactly. So I'm going to bring up my my Azure Key Vault in a second, so I can show you how this is all set up. But yeah, fair questions. If you have any questions while I'm going through, then please make sure to let me know in the chat, and I will try to answer it. It's loading. Okay, so I have my Key Vault up here, which is brilliant. So now let's go up to my overview. No, I'm going to go into my secrets because I want to show you how it enumerates stuff. So if I bring this here and we put the code here, let's hide this. Remember how we had our config value, which was here, called some config value from, my zoom is here, some config value. I don't want that anymore. It's too small and I can't edit it. I'm too zoomed in. There you go. Okay. So some config value from Key Vault, and as long as there is a value here that matches that name, it will try to replace it on the fly, which is fantastic. I don't have to edit anything, or I don't have to configure anything. Now there is access policies. We were talking about that. You don't want everyone to be able to come and access your Key Vault, but I wanted to be able to use my. I had created a service principal called Secretless demo, and with that account, I've already authenticated into my CLI, if I remember correctly. Let's test it out. AZ account show. Am I still logged in? I might not be logged in. I am logged in. And check this out. This is the account I'm already signed in, my Secretless demo account. So now, with that account that only has read permissions to my Key Vault, I can only check the secrets and enumerate the secrets. I can run the application and it will try to populate the value as it does it, as it starts up. So that's the one option of doing it. You can populate values inside your app settings. In fact, this could be blank and it will still work. Or you can, on demand, look for values inside your pages. So if I jump into one of our pages here, I've named it amply my Key Vault secrets page. Let's hide that for now. Let's maximize this. So in here, what I'm doing is I'm grabbing the config setting that should have populated as we started the application, but I'm also instantiating a secret client, a Key Vault client, to go and pull that a different value, the Key Vault secret value, which I also typed secret because I don't know how to type, and it's been there for a few years because I always like to do this demo everywhere I go. As the code changes, certain things remain the same. So if I go back into our code, let's see here, there should be in our secrets, there should be a value called secrets. Key Vault secret, mistyped as well here to make sure that they all match. Perfect. Therefore, two options. One you can pre-populate your config settings and then pull them out when you need them inside your code, or you can on demand call into Key Vault with this code and get some secrets. So let's run it and see what happens. Dun, dun, dun. Let's do command 9. What is this? 0797? Was I typing something? So let's do .NET run. Wait a minute. Did I change something in the code? We did change something. I think this file is not saved. Can't remember which one it was now. So let's see. Okay, it's running. Let's go and test the code and see what happens. Okay, it's working, because if it didn't work, it would fail before it even started, right? It will throw up a massive error message saying, I don't have access to your Key Vault, and it's now broken. And if I go to my Key Vault secrets, there you go. Hello web community. Let's go and change the value in Key Vault and see what happens. Just to make sure that it runs from Key Vault, right? Because, you know, I want you to believe me. Right, so down here, let's come here, let's change this and change the, as you can see, I've been changing the value recently. Let's give it a new name. Hello again, everyone. I may have mistyped this. So every time you create a new secret, by the way, it replaces the old one, but it creates a new version. So you can always back and reference the previous versions of your secret, which is fantastic. It also means that if somebody changes the secret value for whatever reason, you can always have some auditing information there to help you out. Now that's changed. Let's go back to our application and refresh. And hello again, everyone. It worked, right? So this value is now different. It was different before, and I think it said hello web community, and now it says hello again, everyone. Right, and no secrets in the code, which is brilliant. I mean, it adds a couple of lines of code, but think about the benefits of not having to manage secrets anywhere. Your IT admin now can manage all those secrets. You as a developer don't have to worry about these, and it runs in the exact same way as I've shown you here, which is awesome. And as I said, it's not just a .NET tool, right? You can do it with anything else. You can actually do it with Node. In fact, I don't remember if this demo is going to run, but let's do cd up and then ls, and somewhere in here I have a secure node. Secure node with AAD, if I remember correctly. Let's see if it's this one. cd secure node. Yeah, it's not a command. And let's open it in code and see if that's the right version. Might not be, but we'll find out very soon. So what do we do here? We have a validate JWT token, we have a Cosmos endpoint, and we have a storage endpoint. Familiar stuff. This is TypeScript, and I'm using Node. So this is a Node API that is using the Azure Identity Library. Oh yeah, I forgot to show you that. But in our package.json, the library that does all the magic is, different version. What is with HashiCorp? Every time I get a new update. Later, cancel. The Azure Identity is the library that drives this kind of deep integration with the Azure services. And then if you're using storage, then storage will be working with the Azure Identity. If you're using Cosmos, then that will also be using the Azure Identity. And in here, in our code, we have an API, right? And this API has a couple of endpoints. One of them is using Blob to store data, and then the other one is using Cosmos to pull some Cosmos data. And you'll notice that instead of saying, take this API key, we're passing credentials. And those credentials, as you'll notice, have already been defined here. And I'm more liberal with my identities and where they're coming from. So you'll notice that I have a chain token credential exactly as before, but this time I also added my Visual Studio Code credential. I don't know why I did that when I was doing the demo, but it is what it is. And then I'm initializing my storage account and my Cosmos client account, no secrets. And when it comes time to call them, I think down here I have somewhere down here, I have a Blob storage and I have a Cosmos and I have a Volcano, and these are all authenticated, which is annoying because I won't be able to test it now quickly, but we could probably change this, remove that, and then remove this. And I have no idea if this is going to work, but we can always test it. Launch API. I don't know if my storage, my Cosmos account is available. I may have deleted it. You know, the other day I was playing around and I deleted a bunch of things and it broke everything. I deleted the resource group. I didn't realize I had so many things on that demo resource group. And I deleted everything, even my Key Vault, which I was able to restore. So if you ever delete your Key Vault, just be aware that you can restore your Key Vault because it has a soft delete, and for 90 days it is available to you. Apparently the API is listening on port 8000. So let's bring up a tool to test it. Thunder Client. I use that one because it's funky, right? 8000. Okay, so let's create a new request. So we'll do localhost. It's HTTP localhost. A disclaimer, I have no idea if this is going to work, by the way. So I apologize in advance. Don't apologize, Christos. It's gonna work. It's gonna be cool. Let me close this one. No, actually, let's keep it down there. Make some space. What is my endpoint? Let's find the endpoint, which the endpoint should be now Cosmos. In fact, see, I even had an endpoint that said, if you don't know what you're doing, just call this one. So let's go here, new request, and send. Okay. So at least we know that it's serving at the default endpoint. So let's see Cosmos. Fingers crossed. Oh, error message. What is it? Not found. Yeah, I don't think you could find that Cosmos because I think I deleted it. Let's try the Blob. Let's try the Blob. Craft. Blob storage. Let's try that. And that also may have been deleted. which it would be my fault. All my fault. Yeah, I can't. Oh, you know what? Did I not save that? It expects a scope. Oh, yes, I know why. You know what? I need to... So not only does it expect an access token, so I was playing around with access tokens to make sure that not only do we securely connect to our backend resources, but we also expect an authenticated user coming in. And that meant that as the authenticated request comes in, we validate the token that is correct, but we also look into the scopes to make sure that the application or the access token has the right scopes. So here, we need to, yeah, so that's output. So let's rerun the app because I think it crashed. Okay, should be listening now to our endpoint. Okay, listening, which is great. Let's go back to our request. And I failed to find the blob storage. That could have also been deleted. Just thinking about it, there's no endpoint. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that this is what happens. Ha! Well, yes, not found. It's okay. There's a blog post about it and I'll show you exactly how to do it, but the whole point is that the JavaScript code is very similar to what we should have if we were writing .NET, and it does exactly the same thing as before. It just creates a token credential that we pass in to our storage and blob and Cosmos. And it works with a very large number of services, which is great because right now you don't have to worry about where it's supported. I think our goal on Azure is to be able to light up the managed identities anywhere we're running. But you might say, well, Chris, it's all fine and dandy when you're running locally. How does this thing run in production? Let's go and see it. Right. So I will use the previous application that we had here, which was running on my local host. And I think I need to stop that from running, or I already have. Good. So we can take that same exact application and publish it into Azure. So if I were to go into Azure, let's close this one down. Let's go to our portal, which is one of these 1 million tabs. Yep, we're here. Let's bring this up. And I will go into home and I will go into my web app where I have deployed this before. This I deployed yesterday, in fact, because I was getting ready for another demo, but I was not planning to show the JavaScript one. Otherwise, I would have been more prepared. And in here, I have the exact same application. Let's browse it. Ta-da, it's working. And in fact, because we changed the Key Vault secret, it should say hello again, everyone. So with this specific application, I took what I had locally on my machine. I didn't change a single line of code and I deployed it to production. However, in production, we don't have a CLI. So how does this thing work? As I said, many front-end services support managed identities, and the managed identity can be found under here. So this managed identity, called a system assigned one, is a managed identity issued by Azure Active Directory, and it is assigned to this specific resource, and they're tied together like a sandwich, and the code is in between. And it allows me to take this specific managed identity, think of it as a service account, assign some permissions to it, and then give it permissions to access other resources. For example, this one has a very specific, it doesn't even have any role assignments, which is right because I'm not using it to access storage. But if we go into our, so remember this ID over here, if we go back into our Key Vault here, and we go into our access policies, underneath here, there is this web app. Oh, it doesn't show me the ID. This specific account that you see here, it's called an application because it's not a user. This is our web app, and this is this is the identity of our web app, which has been provisioned here. If I remove this one, then my application will fail, right? I mean, we can test it. There you go. Let's save this one. Yes. Now there's a good chance that my keyboard will fail. There you go. Tan, tan, tan. It is forbidden. I cannot access and In fact, I cannot do anything with Key Vault right now because my access has been revoked. What is interesting though is that my application is still running, which is crazy because if I were to restart the application, the startup would fail because remember what we're doing in the startup of the app? If I go back to our program, remember our startup tries to look into Key Vault and enumerate the values. Because our application has already started and read from Key Vault, that's not an issue. But if I were to restart my application, then we would see a massive failure. Now let's go and fix this problem because I don't like broken web apps. So here we're going to go into access policy. We're going to go into secret management and we'll say, you know what? I don't want my application to be able to, even create or recover or backup, right? We only want to give it the specific permissions we need. And in this case, it is just get and list. So as long as I do this, then I will say I want to select a principal. And I can't remember if I copied my, oh no, I didn't copy it. So here, and that's the Microsoft tenant. So it has a lot of accounts. That's cm.net. There you go. Found it. Let's say yes, select this one. And we will say add. And now it's been added back here. Let's save this one. Don't forget to save because if you forget to save, then it won't get applied. And let's see if our website gets, boom, right? This is it. You use Azure Identity and you use the Managed Identity. So Azure Identity is the library, Managed Identity is the service account, and Key Vault is the one that provides the interop. And this is super secure now. It means I don't have to worry about secrets. I can dump a whole number of secrets in my Key Vault and then change my code to pull them out. And it works perfectly end to end. And this is how you would do it in production. You can do it with web apps. You can do it with Kubernetes. You can do it with web apps running on Linux. A lot of services now provide you with the ability to either light up identity or light up identity to access them, or light up identity so you can access other resources. Front end, back end, they all work nicely. And as I said before, because it's all managed for you, you don't have to worry about how to rotate your secrets, how to rotate your accounts, how to do anything else. Managed identities is probably the best thing since sliced bread. So now that you know about them, you can't live without them. I cannot live without them. And if there's no support for managed identities, I cry a little bit. So I cried tears of joy when Cosmos DB announced support for managed identities, which was fantastic. In fact, the demo I did for the demo I was showing you there with the Node app and Cosmos was exactly that. So I could test the capabilities of Cosmos Azure AD integration and managed identities, which was brilliant. Now, that's code. Let's talk a little bit about ops. So unless there are any questions, I'm going to move into how can you take this and add a little bit of ops love to make also managed identities and Key Vault light up in there.
I just wanted to put a quick comment out there. I thought that was absolutely incredible how straightforward and easy looking that was to work with it in production, with that drop down menu, being able to cycle through and choose which ones you want. I know a lot of times there's a lot of headaches going from a local environment to a production environment, in the cloud or whatever. And that looked really straightforward. You just match up the name there and you don't have to, you said it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. It seems pretty good to me.
Oh, BSD guy is here. Hey, BSD guy, thanks for joining us, man. I hope you're good. And thanks for joining us at this weird time. Yeah, in saying that, it's actually a fantastic comment. So one of the things I was working with Julie Lerma, I don't know if you know Julie, but she's fantastic with SQL and Entity Framework, and she's very well known. So let's do CD and let's do LS. I can't remember what was the name of the app. Oh, you know what? It is the 425 show app. Let's go there. CD 425 show. And Julie worked on an application for us. In fact, to say, you know what? I'm going to add a SQL backend, and you guys are going to tell me how to do it right. It's like, yeah, let's do this. So she came on the show, on the 425 show, and we walked her through the process of how to enable managed identity integration with SQL. So let me open the code so you can see it. That means that I can use Entity Framework in my code, and I can run it locally and call into Azure SQL. And then when I move into production, it will just work in the exact same way. The reason why I'm mentioning this as a special case is because SQL supports managed identities out of the box, but the SQL client is not optimized for that experience. We are working with a team right now to make that properly integrated and make it an option for managed identities. Therefore, SQL client should be able to pick it up. But because the SQL client is a separate library to the whole Azure SDKs, there's a little bit of code that you need to write to make it work. I hope I have the right branch here. Let me see, pages. Yeah, data is under data, it shouldn't be. Oh yeah, it's under data, perfect. So let's look at the code very, very quickly. The standard setup and authentication is here, and then you'll notice that we have an add Microsoft Identity web app authentication. We expect people to be signed in before they can access anything. That's all served by that, but the key or the SQL secret here is the 40 to 47. These 7 lines of code is where all the magic happens. And what we do here is we say, I want my DB context to use a specific identity provider called custom Azure SQL auth provider. And then it will look into my config for the connection string, as we always been doing as .NET developers, right? SQL has always been the bread and butter of .NET developers, but if you look at this, you'll notice that I have the SQL Server name, and then I have my database name, and then here under authentication I have Active Directory, device code flow, and then I say that's my database down here. So there's no secrets, there's no username and password anywhere. It just uses a magic SQL authentication provider that looks at my authentication. It looks at the currently signed in token provider, and then it picks that up to authenticate. So here, and this is all going to go away, but you notice that I'm initializing a default Azure credential. Do as I say, not as I do. So you remember how I said I want to be very explicit? I think for this example, I was not as explicit. So I said, try to find something that is authenticated. Remember, default Azure credential will do everything. It will try everything under the sun. So here I'm creating a credential, which I'm passing down into my SQL authentication token, which takes my managed identity token in effect and passes it on to SQL so it can authenticate against SQL Server, which is fantastic because with this code, I can go from local environment to production without changing a single line of code. All the other examples that we had out there in the docs were forcing you to go and change the code a little bit, and I didn't like that. I didn't want to change a single line of code going from dev to QA to production, all pointing to either different databases or using different accounts. So you can achieve it with everything, and SQL is going to be a lot better as we work in this process. Now, I did talk about DevOps, and I talked about Ops, and how does that work? Well, the first way to do it is to do it through ARM templates or Bicep. If you like ARM or Bicep, then this is the place for you, because under deployment, I have a couple of options. The first one is using the standard ARM templates, where I define my parameters and I define my resources, and you'll notice that a couple of the things that are required is an administrator login and administrator password. This was in the olden days when you had to, I say olden, but we just announced the preview, so ignore me. Up until this point, when you were creating a SQL database, it had to have a SQL account so you could sign in, because even though Azure AD authentication was on the way, it was not fully supported. As of yesterday, by the way, if you haven't read the blog, we do support Azure AD only authentication, so you don't need to have SQL logins in there. Now, let's assume that this did not get announced yesterday. I have to do this. And this is hard because somebody needs to manage that password. And what I saw many, many times in the past was this. People will put in the parameters file, they would pass it somehow, and they had to be all managed, and it was a pain because it was expected by ARM to pass that at the time that you want to deploy the ARM template. But I was like, no, you should not be doing this, because the right way to do it is by using a Key Vault. And with this Key Vault over here, we are able to, at deployment time, go and grab the value from our Key Vault and pass it on to our ARM template. And then the ARM template will do its meaningful and run the deployment. If I were to run this here, it would use either my Azure PowerShell or my Azure CLI credentials to deploy. Remember, that account needs to have access to Key Vault, otherwise your deployment would fail. However, if I were to use a tool like a CI/CD tool like Azure Devops, and I think I have one of them here, then there's a little bit of a setup that you need to do. And again, it's all just setup. So if I go into my pipelines, you'll see that I have my deployment, which I deployed just yesterday or Tuesday. And here I'm calling the exact same ARM template, and I am using my secure option, the secure deployment. Let me make this bigger so everybody can see this. You can get security. I think I was doing Azure Resource Management template. It was calling into, see, I'm using my Key Vault one. That's the secure one, remember? So here I am using the secure one, and you might say, well, how does this authenticate? That's a very good question. When we set up the job, here, pipelines, I think it's runs. I don't want the runs. I want my pipelines, and I want to, how do I edit this one? Okay, it should be here. Edit. Good. Oh, you know what? I think I had it down here. So edit. No. Settings. No. I think it was here. I can say, no, that's just retain. Where is it? Oh, pipelines. Okay. Was it here? Manage security. Let's see if it's this one. Don't think it's this one. No, it's not this one. It's fine. Somewhere in here, I can edit this one, and I can remember how to do it. It's been a while. Oh yeah, it is here. Right. Inside this ARM template, you'll notice that one of the things that we have defined on the tasks is the Azure Resource Manager connection, and it uses the CM internal. So that account is here in my service connections. If you've never done this before, Azure Devops will do this all for you. You don't have to touch anything. It will say, oh, do you want to connect to Azure? Perfect. Do you want to create a service principal for you? Go. And then it will do it for you. You can also be very explicit and define your own one. So this account is used by Azure Devops when it tries to deploy my ARM templates. Let's see if that account has access to our Key Vault. So if we come to our Key Vault, you know what? Yes, it's here. It's this account over here. I just renamed the other one, so that's why you don't see it. But this one is the one used. I think it's E42A. Is that the one? E42A. Yeah, it is this one, just different names. And this service principal now is connected from my DevOps to my Key Vault, and it's able to run the deployment. I'm not going to run it because SQL takes about 10 minutes to deploy, so I will leave it as it is. So that's one way to do it, which is perfect. If you are more of a Terraform person, then let's jump into Terraform and see what Terraform does, because I love Terraform as well. I mean, whichever tool works for you, right? So under, you know what? No, we'll go into variables. We have two variables which are not secret, and then we have one file called main.tf, which is our main Terraform file. And in here, I need to change the name. We're doing a deployment. But before we deploy anything, we want to create an Azure Key Vault resource, which we will use in a bit to call into Key Vault and get our values. And from here, we get the necessary values that we need in order to populate our login username and login password from Key Vault at runtime. So when we deploy our Terraform template, again, we don't need to have anything secret here. And as long as this Terraform file runs under the context, or the deployment runs under the context of an authenticated user using the Azure CLI or the Azure PowerShell or your Terraform provider, then it will just work, which is brilliant. And am I using this one? No. And then I have another example. If you want to use GitHub Actions, because everybody loves GitHub these days, let's go to GitHub. GitHub 45. So, and then 45. So where's my demo? You know what? No, it's under my name. too many repos, so little time. So here, I was playing around with that yesterday, so it might be at the very top. There you go. So here's the exact same code that we're looking before on our ASP.NET website, and under workflows on GitHub, we could be calling into our ARM template, or we could be calling into our Terraform template, but I didn't want to do that. I want to try a different way. So I said, what would be the native way of deploying an Azure web app? So here we have our main, and what this one does is initialize our environment variables and settings, and then one of the first things that it tries to do is to sign into Azure, and then it uses Azure Credentials to deploy, and then it deploys our ARM template. I am using my ARM template. Okay, and it uses the Key Vault one. So the important thing here, again, is that this deployment will run under a specific account. With GitHub is slightly different because we need to define that in the settings, and under security or secrets, there is an Azure Credential. This Azure Credential is the service principal account that we created when I set up my Secretless demo. So this one, we can't say it unfortunately because it is a secret and it's encrypted, so once you create it, it goes away. So these Azure credentials are exactly the same as the Secretless demo account that I showed you before. So it has access to our Key Vault. Let's double check that. Our Secretless demo is here. In fact, I had a different one called GitHub Action Runner, which I am not using anymore because I lost the credentials. So let's delete that one. And then if we go back into our actions, 2 days ago it was failing. Oh yeah, I know why it was failing. Why was it failing? Can't remember what it was. Not this one, but this one. Yes, because it was trying to deploy to their own resource group, which didn't exist, and therefore it failed. But you get the gist. If you don't change any values, then it will work just fine. We can always go and fix it, of course, and get it run. Should we make it run? Should we make it run? So there's no resource here under that name. Let's see what the resource name was for our web app. Let's see, what was the resource group here? What was the resource group? Oh, it is called identity, I think. No, here, identity. So if we go back into our the web app name, it was the web app name, fine. The web app name is cm.net conf demo. I need to make these names more generic, right? So, cm.net conf demo. That app exists. What is it talking about? It might be a resource group, you know, guys. That might be the problem, but ARM template, identity, that exists. That's the same. That is the same, setup.net. And then what does it do here? Azure Web Apps deploy, Azure Web App name, my app. I don't think that's changed. So let's start the commit and make it run. So we'll let it run in the background. But you get the gist, right? You can do it with Pulumi. You can do it with Terraform. Let's see a Pulumi demo. cd Pulumi. Do I have one? Yeah, there you go. Pulumi with Azure Active Directory. Let's open in code and see how you would do it with Pulumi. And if you haven't used Pulumi, it's another tool that you can use to deploy to Azure, AWS, and other cloud providers. But this is slightly different with Pulumi because it does some magic behind the scenes. But the whole point here is that we again define a Key Vault resource, and then we can pull our SQL username and the SQL password, and we can pass them into our code. No, I don't want Terraform news version. And again, it will try to run the deployment. And because, oh wow, we have an outline. I like this. I haven't used this before. Okay. And it also creates a secret key if you want to have a Key Vault secret. Then it will try to encrypt it locally with a secret value, which is what you saw before, which I think is this one, isn't it? There, yeah. So it uses this kind of like secret, and the encryption key is here. So with that information, it can decrypt at runtime your Pulumi information. But if you are deploying to Azure and you need to call to get resources from Key Vault, then this is how you do it. You define your Key Vault, and then you pass it into here, your Azure Key Vault, and lo and behold, magic again. You don't have to have secrets anywhere in your solution, which is brilliant. Now, if you really want to benefit from managed identity, and I think our deployment may have failed, but it's fine. I'm not too precious about that. Is it running? No, it's still running. I think it's signing in. Signing in takes forever. Oh, you know what? It's deploying to Azure. It might fail, but it doesn't matter. The whole point there is that if Key Vault, oh, let's see the magic happen right now. You might not find the publish and deploy. It's publishing the app. I have confidence in my demos, you know. Where are we? So I was talking about that. Oh yeah, the other thing I want to talk about is, yes, remote actions. So in my code, the one thing that we were working on, I think that has already checked in, is the ability to run a custom agent into one of your Azure VMs or your local machine that has been joined or tethered into Azure via Azure Arc. And because Azure Arc comes with its own managed identity, it means that you can actually run a GitHub action on any machine you want. So you can have a custom action that benefits from a managed identity, and therefore it can pull values and information for your Key Vault, authenticate to Key Vault with that specific identity. So rather than using a hard-coded setting under secrets, remember how we saw the secrets here? Rather than using this, we can even eliminate that and use a managed identity to deploy GitHub actions from a custom agent, which is... And there you have it. That's an hour of managed identity, service principles, and end-to-end security. Let's see if our action happened. What? It deployed! Boom! In fact, that code should be new now. So if we go back into our Azure web app, it will restart the app. Dun, dun, dun. All done, all deployed, all fresh and new. Right? I don't think there's more to do here. Let's see deployments, not deployment slots. I want to see deployments, which should be somewhere out here. Deployments, where's the deployments? Is it the top? Deployments, production, no, I don't want deployment center. Is it called deployment center now? No, it shouldn't be that. I think that's for setting up. Yeah, that's not it. Activity log, that's me changing stuff here, so that's not the one. I'm pretty sure. Oh, is it under the resource group? Could be under resource group, right? The deployments that happen. Can't remember. Does anyone remember on the stream? Because I checked deployments before. You know what? Is it deployments? Deployments. There you go. Ah. Oh, I don't have a deployment here. Interesting. Oh. Is it because I don't have the right user group? Resource group? Yeah, I don't have any deployments display. Well, we know they definitely run, and we know it run against our ARM template, and that was web app there, .NET 5 as well, running almost the latest. Did you know that .NET 6 is now supported in Azure Web Apps as a preview? Awesome stuff. Run web app deployments. So this is the website. And just to prove that this is correct, we come here and yes, and then here and done. There you have it. Easy peasy lemon squeezy, right? I hope you found this useful. If you want to learn more about identity and if you want to, examine how you can create secure apps, then you can always join us on the 45 show and have fun with us.
Yeah, I just wanted to say from a user standpoint, I know you're on the team and everything, but me kind of as a regular dev out in the wild, so to speak. I know Verizon came out with their data breach investigative report for 2021, and I think use of stolen creds accounted for 80% of intrusions on web apps. So not having that trail, whether it be in your GitHub or wherever, that's that's so useful, and surely we'll be seeing a lot more of it going forward.
Well, I mean, I used to run this thing called the Azure Workload Evaluation, which was me and somebody else from our team. We would land into a customer one morning, we sit down and bring everyone from the team, devs, ops, security, and would go through this massive checklist of how do you do your disaster recovery, how do you do your deployments, and the amount of things that we would uncover through that conversation, because it's probably the only time that everybody's in the same room talking to each other, right? It was insane that, we found once that somebody was uploading their ARM template into a storage account, and then they were running a remote task to deploy that ARM template. But that ARM template was in an insecure storage blob, and then the deployment was running from there. They never deleted the file. So they had all these different permutations of the same ARM template being uploaded and run on that blob storage account. And it had all the secrets because, it was in the parameters file. So when they realized, when they were talking through the process and they turned around and saw that, they just, it was jaw drop because they didn't realize they were doing it. They didn't even know between them that they were doing it. So someone's like, yeah, we've always been doing it for the last 6 months. That's how we've been deploying. And people are like, pfft. So there's Emmanuel asking, watching this, I wonder if it's possible to access Key Vault secrets from inside a Databricks notebook using managed identity. Dude, you can do it from anywhere. In fact, I have a notebook open, which is not using, I don't know if you can do it from Databricks though, from inside the Databricks. That would be interesting. I have a notebook here. Do I have one notebook here? Yeah, I have a notebook here. So this notebook obviously runs .NET code, so it's not Python. But I can run it locally from here. I can use Azure Identity to actually authenticate against Azure AD in exactly the same way as I was doing it before. So it doesn't matter where you're running it, as long as there's an authenticated process and you can run code, then it should work. Now, Databricks runs in its own context, so I don't know if Databricks support managed identity, but let's find out. Let's find out. Why don't we, right? Databricks managed identity. Activities now. Oh, there you go. It's been supported for a year. Azure Databricks now supports Azure Active Directory to authenticate to REST endpoints, and it can use system-assigned managed identities while integrating with Databricks. More secure leveraging Azure Data Factory system-assigned. Yeah. Managed identities eliminate the need for that. I've shown you what managed identities can do, right? And now there's a process to, if you go into your Databricks, I think that's your Databricks. Oh, dude, you can do it. You can use your, oh, wait a minute. Is this for accessing or is this for running? Creating a Databricks linked service using managed identity. So I don't know if that's incoming or outgoing. Are you expecting Databricks to call out to other services? I don't know if that's going to work. That's a good question, by the way, Emmanuel. We'll have to look into that because I don't know much about Databricks. So it looks like select Databricks workspace, select managed identity. And then what? Sample LinkedIn service payload. So I think that's a configuration. That's not a, I need a connection string. Okay. Don't know. Are you calling into the Databricks or are you calling from Databricks to a different storage account? See, this is live, man. This is how we do it.
It's the best way to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Now, Emmanuel, if you can email us at the 4to5 show or join our Discord channel, which I have here. Just give me a second. Where's my Discord? Register, share, get help.
Yeah, they should be able to see it there at the top there. Or is that?
Yeah,
no, that's the 425 one.
But I was looking at this one. So there, you can use Discord, join us there, and we can definitely help you with any questions you might have because I get it. It's great. As I said, once you get to know about secretless apps and using mass identities on Azure, then it's mind blowing. Now, I know that we announced Azure Arc, and I did mention Azure Arc in a second. Yeah, man, join us anytime. Tuesdays and Fridays at 8 a.m. Pacific. But as I was saying before, Azure Arc, the current Azure Arc, allows you to extend your resources onto outside of Azure. And these resources will behave as if they were Azure VMs. So if I attach my machine, my current machine, onto Azure Arc, then it will have a managed identity. And at Build, we announced that Azure Arc can be used to extend PaaS onto any other infrastructure, whether it's AWS or your own data center or your own room running Raspberry Pis. You can benefit from Azure Arc because it will look and behave as an Azure resource. And I was so excited. I went on the internet and I said, "Hey, Azure Arc is awesome because you get managed identities for free, and it will allow you to securely do that." And then somebody from the team internally reached out and said, "Well, that Azure Arc capability is not enabled yet, so please don't say that." So I had to go back and retrace my steps and say, well, it's not actually supported yet, but it's coming. The nice thing though is that it is coming, so it can run, like with Azure Arc, you can get managed identities anywhere for free, and the Azure SDKs work flawlessly out of the box to use that specific identity to call into other Azure resources. So in effect, it's an awesome experience. That's me, man. I'm done. Do you have any questions for me or anything else?
I don't have anything else. I'm not seeing anything else coming from the chat.
Awesome. In that case, I want to thank everyone for joining us for this impromptu last-minute change to our stream and making it happen. I really appreciate everyone joining me at this late in the day and the 10, 15 people that were on the stream with us. This will also be recorded, so if you want to go and catch up, we'll put it on our YouTube channel, which is... do I have our YouTube channel somewhere? It must be somewhere around here. If it's not, then I will put it somewhere else. Do I have my YouTube channel here?
And I'll be sure to link this to the San Antonio Cloud group as well, so that anybody who wasn't able to be here live will be able to see and get all the good stuff you shared with us.
Well, and also everything I've showed today, it's actually on our it's on our blog. Most of the demos I have are on the 45 Show GitHub, and they're on the blogs where we show step-by-step instructions on how to set up your managed identities and how you can benefit from managed identities in your apps. So reach out to us, use the links, and look forward to seeing you again. And thanks to Kellen for organizing it.
Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, everyone. Let's drop the credits. How do we drop the credits?